a positive resolution of the need that he has for these ships. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Hirono. Senator Rounds, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Gentlemen, let me begin by saying thank you to all of you for your service to our country. Secretary Austin, I appreciated the comments and the clarifications and so forth that you shared with Senator Cotton. I think it's very important that the American people understand that we want the Ukrainians to win and that we will support them with the appropriate background intelligence information and weapons so that they can regain the territory that has been lost to Russia, and that includes the area in the Donbass. And I think that's a very important clarifying point, so I thank you for that, sir. I'd also, Mr. Secretary, and if this is an issue which you would prefer to have Mr. McCord address, that's fine with me, sir, but the industrial base that we have today in the United States is one that we, particularly the defense industrial base, is one that sometimes comes under question with regard to our long-term capabilities, and yet it's something that has been of concern to this committee, and I think that the Joint Chiefs have expressed their concern in the past about our ability to respond and to build the weapons and to maintain the weapons systems that we have. I want to point out one that we have in the past, and that while it did not start on your watch, sir, I think it's critical that we fix it as soon as possible. And what I'd like to talk about is an example that I've talked about before. The ability of the Navy, and I'm going to use the Navy because we've used the Navy in the past. The ability of the Navy to manage scheduled maintenance for its vessels is beyond concerning. The USS Boise is a case in point, but far from being the only example. Now, the USS Boise is a Los Angeles-class nuclear attack sub. It was commissioned in November of 1992. The Boise has not been on patrol since 2015. It lost its dive certification in 2017. Now, we've had some of our folks, my MLA was on board the Boise in September of 2019 as its crew executed pre-maintenance procedures. Here we are, 7 years plus later, since it was last on patrol, and it is still awaiting its engineered overhaul. And there is no funding to allow this to happen until, at the earliest, FY24, but probably FY25. Now, this is what's concerning. Multiple captains of the Boise have spent their entire command at sea tour while it's been stuck in limbo. American taxpayers continue to pay for a nuclear attack submarine that hasn't executed its mission in 7 years. Now, myself and my colleagues have asked tough questions of Navy leaders for at least the last 5 years, and yet nobody in the Navy has been able to solve the problem. Now I'm hearing that the Boise may be decommissioned without ever receiving an overhaul. I think this is simply not acceptable to have the taxpayer-funded nuclear attack submarine with those capabilities out of service for more than 7 years, and we can't seem to get to the bottom of what the problem is. Mr. Secretary, I'm not sure if you're prepared to discuss this or if you'd like to have Mr. McCord attempt it, but I'd sure like to hear your thoughts.
Well, thanks, sir. I'd certainly invite Secretary McCord to make comments as well, but a couple of points that I would make up front is that, as you've heard me say, we continue to invest in our sub capability, especially the Columbia class, and that will continue going forward. We think it's critical. But the issue that you raise, I think, is an issue of capacity in our shipyards, and so this budget invests $1.7 billion in public shipyard capacity and the industrial base. I think it's critical, and we'll continue to do our part to make sure that we're helping the industry have what it, or helping create the capacity to take care of our capabilities here.
Mr. Secretary, thank you. And perhaps rather than spending the rest of my time on this particular one, could I ask, would you get back with us and let's find a solution to this problem?
Sure, absolutely.
Thank you. General Milley, I have just one question for you, and that is I know that you've been an Army officer and that you have commanded ground troops and you understand the need to have all possible systems available for their use. There was and there continues to be a question as to whether or not landmines should be a part of our systems of operations. And yet sometimes I think people get a misunderstanding of the difference between anti-vehicle landmines and those which are anti-personnel landmines, and they don't understand the differences on them. This is a needed capability for our armed forces, is to have the ability for these landmines to be able to be used in certain situations. You understand that. The Army has been developing landmine alternatives for over 12 years, yet the objective capability is not scheduled to be fielded until at least FY 30 or 31. To me, the results are unacceptable to the mission and to the force. General Milley, could you, using your best professional military advice, share with this committee the need or without the need for the upgrade of landmines and its critical importance to our armed forces?
Thanks, Senator. I do think landmines are important, especially if you're in the defense, but also in any other capability in order to shape enemy operations. We need to look no further than what's happening actually in Ukraine. Landmines are being effectively used by the Ukrainian forces to shape the avenues of approach by Russian armored forces, which puts them into engagement areas and makes them vulnerable to the anti-tank, the 60,000 anti-tank weapon systems that we're providing the Ukrainians. So that's one of the reasons why you see column after column of Russian vehicles that are destroyed. So anti-tank or anti-personnel mines are very effective use in combat. There is a policy governing those for the United States for use, and we are the reason we're developing a newer one is so that they time out and they don't present harm after the conclusion of hostilities, and they would self-detonate or destroy. They become inert at the end of hostilities. So, but landmines are very effective use in combat.
Thank you. Thank
Thank
you,
you, Senator Rounds. Thank you very much. Senator Kane, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to our witnesses for your service and for your effective work in recent months. So, as Russia